and I don't know why it was restricted.
So it was one that was out of China. Okay. So
about China, yeah, because I thought we should have a different perspective. Of course, over here, everybody's panicking. Oh no, the evil alliance is back again. The axis of evil, China, North Korea, Russia, that kind of thing. So but we could talk about that.
Yeah. No,
anyway, we better introduce ourselves to.
We are. Yeah, we're live, and hey, welcome everybody to Talking Niagara. This is Thursday, June 20th, not July, June 20th.
Yeah, and I'll be out of here at 1:45 today. I got workmen coming into the place, so I got to get ready for them.
Okay, so all right. So that
first thing I want to talk about is, when is the heat wave going to break? We got. Does anybody know? I'm just asking that question.
Yeah, supposedly Monday or Tuesday next week. I was just looking it up.
Really? That late?
Maybe Saturday. Maybe Saturday or Sunday, but maybe more likely Monday or Tuesday.
Wow.
The rain.
I've got my air conditioner on. I don't usually use it. I've got it on though, and there's a couple different reasons why, and I'll point this out to anyone it may concern. If you have an air conditioner and you don't like using it like me, you should use it a couple times a month during the summertime, because it's a mechanical piece of equipment. It needs to be run. It's not really good to have something like that not run and just sit. So you have to let it go through its cycles every once in a while. It's like a car. If you let a car sit for a long, long time, it's really not that good for it. So it's a mechanical piece of equipment, and it's better to have it run once in a while. If you don't like air conditioner, like I tend not to. I just use fans, but do run it once in a while to keep it up for those times you really want them.
Okay, most ACs though, most AC type solutions, you either have it on heat mode or you have it on cool mode. And
but still, you still have a compressor in there. There's different aspects of the machine, so you want to use both aspects of the machine. If you have a heat or a cooling thing, there are different aspects. One has a compressor in it, and you should use that compressor from time to time. That's the AC. The other one has heat coils or something else like that. So so just if you're disinclined to use your air conditioner, just use it once in a while to keep it mechanically fit, basically.
Okay, so we had thunderstorms overnight. As I understand. We also potentially have thunderstorms this afternoon, right? Now since you were talking about weather, today high of 32, Friday high of 29 with rain, Saturday 30, Sunday 27, and that's when it supposed to get cooler. But another weather app that I looked at said Tuesday more likely.
Yeah. So anyway, we have like I say, is it today the solstice? That's another thing I have to ask. I have to look it up right now. I think today is the solstice.
I rarely follow that, to be quite honest. I just assume it's the 21st. I don't go looking it up to see if there's any variances on it, but
it varies. It depends. Like you have leap years and all that other things that interfere.
I know what you're saying, but I just assume it's the 21st in both instances and just leave it.
Okay, it is today at 4:50 p.m. At 4:50 p.m. we will transition from spring to summer right here in Niagara.
Well, there you go. All right. Okay. So here we go. All right. Where are we? Good morning, Mike Cushman. How are you? Happy to have you on board. And I noticed that we've had some new people on board the last couple of days, which has been a good thing.
Well, yes, man. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Even though they haven't commented, what I've seen them is in the likes. You know, I've seen new
Yes.
likes from people that I haven't seen before. Okay. You know, every once in a while I check the likes out, and you know, I'm seeing some from people that are new. So welcome all new listeners, and hope in time that you can take part and give your contribution as well. All right.
Yes. And as we were talking about as we began the show, there is this new alliance happening between Russia and North Korea. Now, you know that could not have happened without the sanction of China. China had to give it its nod. What this does for Russia is North Korea has, I guess, stockpiles of Soviet era weapons, tons and tons and tons of them, and they're handing them over to the Russians. Now, the Russians will now be using those in Ukraine as Ukraine has become more and more desperate along the way. And this may, and unfortunately, what we have done here in the West, in my opinion, is by expanding NATO and threatening to expand NATO in Ukraine and Georgia has caused the Russians to react militarily. And this is going to cost Ukraine land because the Russians are never going to give it back ever. They have this idea. Both Russians and the Security Council, I think, have come up with peace plans for Ukraine, and each one is intransigent. Nothing's going to change for us, and nothing's going to change for you. But now that Russia has another stockpile of artillery shells coming out of North Korea, and not only that, North Korea feels much safer now doing a lot of testing and whatever it wants to do because it has an aggression pact with the Russians, and the Chinese are there just happily letting it all happen. What we've done here is move this into a very dangerous situation where you have China, right? You have a huge block of land. You have the third largest country in the world, China, and the first largest country in the largest country in the world, Russia, all there together, and the spheres of influences, and them tying together with a nut bar like Kim Jong. It's, I think we've really made some pretty bad mistakes on this side of the hemisphere in the West. But anyway, that's my opinion. What's yours, Peter?
I'm not going to differ distinctly from that. I think that's pretty well spot on. Okay, it's first time in 24. Right, it's the first time in 24 years that Putin went there. This is not new. This is not new and nothing big. Yeah.
Yeah, he met Kim Jong's father back in 2000. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do, and unfortunately, I guess that burgeoning friendship, that sort of that he had with Trump. If Trump gets elected back in again, if he goes to North Korea like he did the last time, we're gonna have a love triangle.
Yeah. He got rebuffed by North Korea the second time, though, didn't he?
Well, sort of, because the conditions they had for peace and stuff were ridiculous, so they made them not work.
Yeah,
like Trump took a lot of criticism for going to North Korea because Obama wanted to go to North Korea and talk to the adversaries of North Korea and Iran and stuff, and the right-wing press particularly roundly called him a traitor and an idiot and all that other stuff. But when Trump did it, all of a sudden he was a hero with far-looking policies of potential peace. That's how stupid the American press is right now. It's it's your idea, it's bad. If it's our idea, it's good. But we're used to that now. But this is a potentially bad situation. Seriously bad situation. What's happened here? When back in 2006, 2007, they wanted to expand NATO into the Ukraine and Georgia. All right. Whose sea is the Black Sea? It's divided basically, all right, the two major powers on that are Turkey and Russia. Well, if you take Ukraine, which at that time had the Crimea, and put it into NATO, what's going to happen, right?
Oh yeah,
Right.
those
And what about
Russian.
Georgia at the other end of the Black Sea, right? And you put
Yeah.
that in as NATO, right? You shrink the Black Sea incredibly, the amount of access the Russians have,
Yeah.
and,
Oh yeah.
and seriously, you're surrounding them. What would you do if you were the Russians?
Oh yeah, you got no choice but to fight back because you need that. You need that access in the Black Sea.
All they had
Yeah.
to do is say, okay, we're not going to make Ukraine
But
part of NATO, and we're not going to make Georgia part of NATO. We'll maybe entice them into the European Union for trade, but we're not going to do that. And remember, this also, the Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons back in the 90s. It gave up its nuclear weapons with a promise from the U.S. and Russia that no one would invade them and they would be protected from invasion. Right now, you've got the U.S. having a proxy war in the Ukraine against Russia. If they had held on to their nukes, they would have been fine.
all right. So coming back local, Niagara Region bought a vehicle worth over $600,000, and it was delivered 2 years ago, and they're not using it. It's basically Bob Gale is saying, I've been asking about this one for the last year and a half. It costs $600,000. It's sitting idle while we rent another one. So they're renting a unit from one company and bought a unit from another company. But then Frank Tassoni, who's the director of transportation services for the region, is basically saying, well, that's not quite true. The reality is that this truck doesn't quite live up to what they wanted from the truck.
Yeah, they ordered the truck with certain specifications, and it did not come with certain specifications, and that is the arguments going on ever since. Now, for some reason, they just can't return it to the supplier and say, "Come on, put those specialities into this truck, or what, or else." And I don't know why it's sitting there for 2 years. It is a fine piece of equipment. It is a very expensive piece of equipment, but it doesn't meet the standards that the region wants for some reason or another. And they ordered them with those standards. So I can't understand why they just can't take it back to the supplier and say, "Come on," or go to court or something. And it just says, it just sits there over and over again. And that's typical of government, really. Oh, well, we can't use it, so we'll replace it for a rental, and then forget about this actually high-end piece of equipment.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is basically it's a vacuum truck used for routine wastewater maintenance, such as cleaning sewage, pumping station wet wells, removing scum, sludge, and debris from process areas at wastewater treatment facilities. So it does, it's getting in there and getting the scum removed.
Yes. So this is a piece of equipment that's essential to the region. This will be a workhorse. It'll be used continually, often here and there. It's going to be a very important piece of equipment. A vacuum truck like that has multiple uses and all kinds of things. You can just imagine. Having worked in industry, you always had vac trucks. You had vac trucks all over the place. You had vac trucks taking up vacuum up dry stuff. You had vacuum up wet stuff. You had muddy stuff, sludgy stuff, oily stuff. They can do anything. Vacuum on those things is incredible.
They replaced a surface of a road, and I've never seen them use one of these before, but there was in St. Catharines, they were replacing a surface of the road, and what they did is they used a vacuum truck to actually suck up all of the crap that was in that on that road surface, on the paving area. So as they removed the surface paving, they then removed all of the crap underneath it to about a foot deep in order that they
Yes.
could remake that, that whole paving area.
Remember that stuff used to be all done manually in sometimes with a backhoe and stuff like that. These vac trucks are incredibly powerful, and they are essential. So we have one sitting for 2 years. It's not being used, which is a tragedy, by the way. But it never says anything in the article of why it hasn't met its specifications. But on the other hand, it doesn't say what they're doing to see if they can get those specifications.
Okay, here's another question that I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask well, I don't know, it's a dumb question, but I've got to ask this one anyway, and maybe somebody out there's got the answer to it. So you buy a truck for $600,000. How much do you rent these for a week or for, per day, etc.? Because clearly they have got a current solution where they're renting a similar such truck. Is renting versus buying, what is the difference in that? Is there a what's the cost ratio?
They don't tell you how much they're renting it for, but it's not going to be cheap, because these pieces of equipment are very durable, and they're very powerful pieces of equipment. However, when something goes wrong expensively. So you're not going to get this cheap.
That was one of the reasons why I was asking the question, why wouldn't we rent one rather than buy one? Because the thing about renting it is that when it goes wrong, hey, Mr. Rental Company, can you fix it for us, right?
Yes.
The actual cost of resolution, cost of maintenance is on the rental company.
Yeah, and it's got a picture of it. They're sitting there nice. And geez, I got to talk to the reviewer. They're not opening my articles.
Yeah, no, it's basically it's got it's got a great big tank on the back with long suction pipes and and additional hose piping on it.
Right? I think one of the funniest things I ever saw was when a vac truck came to Nanticoke. There was a crew. Well, the operator looked like a bodybuilder. He was tall, heavily muscled, looked like you'd be competing with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they had to have a partner with him from the labor pool of the power station. And who did they give to the guy as it was a very 110-pound little blonde lady was the one dragging these hoses around. Now he isn't supposed to do that because she was supposed to do it. That was part of the deal. You bring in your operator and we'll give you the laborer rather than you bring your laborer too. So the laborer they gave him was just this little slight looking little woman. You got like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Universe. He's putting all the dials, and this little wee woman dragging around these heavy hoses, dragging them here and there, just about dying. And he wants to help her, but he can't because that's part of the conditions. And eventually she just, the vacuum was so strong that her sucked her whole leg into the pipe. And she was off work for a very long time. In fact, she was still off work when I left that place. And so she had been off work for at least 6 months. And that's because some dummy decided that the laborer that was going to be working with this vac truck operator, it was so ridiculous. She's struggling with these huge pipes and hoses that she's dragging around. And Arnold Schwarzenegger and his big mitts and everything, playing with the little dials. Like, what's wrong with this?
They should have been the other way around, shouldn't it?
Exactly. And I'm pretty sure he didn't really like the fact that the wee lady was had to do all that work. But anyway, what happened was the suction, when she's dragging that stuff, the suction was so strong, she didn't she didn't have the strength to resist it, and it just sucked her right into the hose, and he had to turn it off with the damage that had already been done to her leg.
Yeah. Okay. Why are explorers still wanting to go back to the Titanic? This June 18th, 2023, which was a few days ago. A few days ago was first anniversary of this. The Titan submersible imploded on its way to the wreck of the Titanic, buried 4 kilometers deep. And yet people are trying to book up and get to go to the Titanic at some point. And Ohio real estate tycoon Larry Connor and Ottawa-born submarine expert Patrick Leahy are planning their own journey down to the Titanic soon. But which is based upon basically Patrick Leahy was the owner of the company that set the Titan submersible down, and he's basically looking for a trip when he's going to go down in their new Titan 4000-2 Abyssal Explorer, right?
Well, who's going to go on that? First of all, anybody that knows anything about this tragedy knows that it was a carbon fiber body with titanium ends. So it was not spherical. Number one thing about diving bells like this, spherical is better. So, but as soon as you get an elongated type of cylinder, not spherical, but cylindrical type, which was the Titan immersible that imploded, you start to have issues. And when you combine materials too, you start to have issues. Here was a combination of carbon fiber and titanium. That's another problem with this. So if you're going to go with this guy down to the Titanic, and believe me, I'd go there in a minute too if I had a chance. But first thing you're going to have to look at is this one made of carbon fiber. What did you do? Did you skip all those safety checks you were supposed to do with the other Titan?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And hey, the thing is, I wouldn't go down there even if you paid me $1 million even if you paid me $1 million, I wouldn't go down there. But hey,
well, I'll take the million and go.
I wouldn't go down there. I wouldn't go down there in a thing built by a company that's already had a failed Explorer. There are other companies out there that have made successful Explorers out there. Okay, they're only one-man submarines, but they have been to all of the deep ocean trenches successfully.
This is only 4 kilometers down.
Yeah.
James Cameron went to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. That's 11 kilometers down, almost 3 times the depth. And the water the pressure down there is incredible. So he was able to go down there. His unit that he designed or helped design that went down there. He was very, very careful about it. If you hear him talk when this implosion happened to this submersible Titan, the whole community that goes on deep dives like that were abuzz because they really weren't too happy about the way he skipped off certain measures that he should have done, and particularly he ignored the fact that carbon fiber is very, very strong. But what tends to happen with carbon fiber is it develops microscopic cracks that you cannot detect. By going deep, by being compressed and then back up again. And that's exactly what happened in this particular case. The carbon fiber body just imploded, just gave out.
Yeah.
In an instant, you had four or five guys dead, just like that.
Yeah. And the whole point about carbon fiber is so for example, they use carbon fiber on bikes that, or they used to at one point use carbon fiber on bikes that they would run for the Tour de France, and that was the thing, that you could lift these bikes up by your pinky finger, and they were lightweight you could get. But the trouble is that carbon fiber, when it decides it's going to gives up in a spectacular way.
Yes, even with hockey sticks, like they just the carbon fiber hockey sticks just get destroyed. So
it can take a real pounding. Those bikes could go through the 2,000 kilometers of the Tour de France, week after week, day after day of being ridden 100 and something miles a day, and make it quite successfully, and then one does 50 kilometers and just collapses in a heap.
Yeah, I don't want to scare anybody, but carbon fiber is used more and more on airplanes because it makes everything much more lighter. And I don't know how they check to make sure that it's not beginning to fail, the wings or whatever else that they're used of carbon fiber.
Yeah. Well, obviously carbon fiber is improved over the years, and one of the questions about originally carbon fiber, when 20 years ago, there was a spectacular accident because basically this guy's bike disintegrated underneath him.
Yeah, and that's how carbon fiber fails. It is a spectacular new, well, it's not new, but it's a revolutionary type of material. However, we haven't really learned everything about it, unfortunately, and although they do know that it tends to develop microscopic cracks that you cannot detect, that's exactly what happened with the submersible 1 year ago.
Yeah,
and when you're talking about airplanes or other things like that, you begin to wonder. Remember the very first commercial jet was the Comet. I think it was the British one. It was a Comet, and they were going back and forth jet service, and the thing just disintegrated in the air. It should not have done that. Not true. The cylindrical shape had no bearing on it. Camera went down in a Mariana Trench in a cylinder. Well, that's what I said. It was the carbon fiber that was the problem. Yes, I did say that he went down in a cylinder, but you didn't find combined. You can go down in a cylinder, but you have to make compensations for it. That was Paul K. Lemire. Yeah, I do know that he went down in a cylinder because you could see the shape of it, but he made lots of compensation for it, and he didn't mix materials. He didn't mix one material with another. And as a matter of fact, I don't think he mixed one kind of steel with another.
Yeah. All right. And that's actually an important thing, that you've got to take all of the safety precautions when you're going down that deep.
Yeah, and Cameron went down 11 kilometers, like I said, three times as much as where the Titanic is. And
I can see
right. It was the material. It was the carbon fiber that failed.
You see, I can see one day people paying money to go see the Titanic, right? Definitely, I can see that being something that we people will want to do. Because of how public and how how expressive the sinking of the Titanic was, because it's like there isn't a kid who's grown up in the 20th plus century that doesn't know what the story of the Titanic, right?
Well, it's over 100 years old now.
Yeah. I lived in the city where the Titanic set sail, and they have a Titanic museum there. There's a lot of history in Southampton on the south coast of England about the Titanic has a major influence on that city.
Well, it was built in Belfast. I think it left this maiden voyage. Yeah.
Holland and Wolfe.
Yeah. So this is
one of its sister ships was actually sunk during the First World War.
The Britannic.
With the
I think it
torpedo.
was called the Britannic, yeah. And then there was
Mauritania.
There was Britannic that was
Britannic, yeah.
was his sister ship. They had different names. I think there was 3 altogether. There was the Olympic, the Titanic, and there was one other one. And one was used as a hospital ship in the First World War, hit mines, and it went down too. It was supposed to have the things that was wrong with the Titanic were supposed to be corrected in it, but it hit some mines and it went down like, steel and water, basically. As the designer of the Titanic, when somebody said to him, "Will this sink?" and he says, "It's made of steel." Yes, it will. In the right conditions. So yeah, of course, the Titanic, it was floated out in 1912 at the very zenith of British power.
Britannic. It was
What?
the Britannic that was
Britannic.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was, but they changed the name from the Olympic because it was Titanic and Olympic, and they changed one of the names of I think there was 3 ships actually, and the one was changed from Olympic to Britannic. I think that was the one during the war.
Yeah.
So that.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I'm just saying, I'm agreeing that was, I think we've gotten to the bottom of that particular situation about what the ship was called.
Yeah. So the reason, I think the fascination with the Titanic, it was at the very zenith of British power and industrial might. The First World War pretty well did in Britain as a major world power. It reduced its power incredibly. The 4 years of that war. But just prior to that war, it owned 1/4 of the Earth's surface. It had the leading edge industries of the world. I mean, Germany and the United States were catching up fast, but Britain still was at the very top of like they were the ones where the Industrial Revolution began. That gave them a great edge. And as a matter of fact, if you think of Britain, it was described as a flower pot trying to support an oak tree, because Britain was so small and everything. And how did it do it? With a limited population and it did it basically through the Industrial Revolution.
We did it because every Englishman out there was at the age of 6 was given a whip and told go out and whip the colonies into shape.
Well, they did, and for a while they did, but the First World War gave them a wound that they couldn't recover from, and the Second World War finished them off.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay, go on.
Yeah, so that I think is the fascination. This is the ultimate machine. It was the Titanic. And those days it was like something else to have a ship that big and be exposed to being nearly unsinkable and all the other stuff, and the massive tragedy that it is endlessly fascinating to us.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Here's a big question that you would love to respond to. Do women respond differently to extreme temperatures than men? I would say likely they do.
Yes.
Otherwise, why the article?
Yeah.
Brock University kinesiology professor Tom Mundell says there's still a great deal to learn about how groups respond to extreme temperatures.
Yes. I guess when I first read the article, it's been a few days though since I've read it, so I have to recall it a bit. I guess when they take temperatures and see how people respond to temperatures, they take the population as a whole, men and women, children, whatever. Yeah. They may separate them from old or young or something like this. But somebody says, well, wait a minute, there are 2 sexes here. Well, that might get me in trouble with the progressives, but there are basically 2 sexes, and they respond differently. And
well, it says here, young children, elderly and pregnant women are among the most at risk of developing heat-related illnesses at the moment, of course, because of the heat wave. That's why this is important.
if you've ever been in extreme heat, and I have working in it, I've been on jobs where guys just collapsed from the heat. I've been on jobs. These are young men, like they're not like any pansy, so they collapse or they get heat stroke. Heat stroke is something you'll find somebody talking a million miles an hour, kind of loony. And if you look at them, they're not sweating when everybody else is sweating. So look out for them. That can be very dangerous. Get that person into a cool place quickly and put water into them. And that's happened a few times on the jobs I've been on. One in particular, when I was working on the coke ovens in Nanaco. I mean, the coke ovens were still on. They couldn't turn them off as we worked on them. So you can imagine how hot it was. It was 100 degrees every day. And we worked on the south side with the sun beaming down on us. And we had to wear special Nomex coveralls, which were fireproof, but were heavy and hot. And then we had to weld with 1/4-inch jet rod. Impossible. I was going to the water cooler every 15 minutes and drinking as much water as I possibly could. I did not go to the bathroom for 15 hours, despite the fact that I drank gallons and gallons and gallons of water. It just came out of my pores.
In fact, that gallons and gallons of water that you drank just went straight through your body and sweated out.
That's right. I do a 12-hour shift, and I wouldn't have gone to the bathroom since before I got there, and I still didn't have to go until an hour or so after I got home and drank some more water in a cooler place.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things, and they're so high temperatures are very dangerous to us.
Yeah. The
article is about women though, and the reason why they do that is because, well, of course, women have one half of humanity have different hormonal challenges. They have menstrual cycles, and they also have menopause. All of these things affect the heat, how well a woman responds to the heat, much more different than a man. So
I would also say there's probably a difference between young and old as well.
Of course.
I think when I was in my mid-20s and 30s, I'm just like, well, it's hot outside. Who cares, right? Whereas now, as it's hot outside, I'm not going out there.
Well, it's a common thing. You get postmenopausal women outside in the sun wearing a sweater.
Yeah,
that's because they don't feel they feel cold, but they're hot, and we found that during a specific heat wave in France, you had a lot of old women dying in their apartments, and when they went in there, they would have a sweater on. So the fact of the matter is they don't know how to judge their own heat. This doesn't happen as much with men, but it does happen a lot with women.
This is actually
women have issues. Menopausal women in their menstrual cycles will find it different, and of course, a pregnant woman. I remember when my ex-wife, was pregnant for the first time, how she suffered because it was a heat wave that year. So she had to continually go and have cool baths to bring her temperature down, and so these are things that are being studied, and they should be. And you wondered why they haven't been studied earlier. They're adding this group of Brock are adding to the knowledge of how people react to temperatures. You would have think something like that would have happened long ago, wouldn't you?
I would have thought so. This is actually not this is not dumb type of research. It said previous research has focused on young men, as is typical for most research. They're not in the majority of Niagara population, nor most at risk from heat-related illnesses when temperatures soar. So that actually, so first of all, I was very surprised to hear that women are at bigger risk when the temperatures get hot, because typically with most of these type of research, it's younger men that are more at risk than women.
Well, the base temperature of a woman is lower than a man. So when you think of what was it,
Yeah.
94.6 or 96.8, that's how I remember it. 96.8 is supposed to be the healthy temperature, but it's not necessarily that for women. Women may come in at 95.8. They typically have a lower standard temperature than men do. So there is one difference right there. Women tend to have their temperatures are a little less than men. They also have the fat deposits on their body are different. They have less muscles they have to drag around too, which would make it where men will begin to have are heavier, and once they are hot, then they retain that heat for a longer time. The bigger you are, the more you retain the heat. It's harder to heat up, but then once you do, then it's hard to get rid of it. So because women are humans with less muscle than men, and more fat as part of the percentage of their body, and having hormonal fluctuations as during their menstrual period, and that's not to even mention menopause and postmenopause. So they do have a different reaction to heat. And as I've said before, it surprises me that something like this hasn't been studied before, or at least not enough to be able to. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm very surprised it hasn't been studied before. I would have expected, my expectation when I saw this title and when I saw you send me it would have been, well, so what? We already knew that. but no,
yeah. Well, I was just thinking how complicated it's going to get, because you're going to have 9 non-binary temperature.
No,
those born.
It's talking
those
about
born with female
genders.
sex non-binary. Those born with male sex non-binary. Oh boy, is it somewhere in the middle?
Yeah. Well, it is true. One of the things that is definitely true is that men's tend to have less bodily fat on them. But that's not to say that, hey, one can individually be fat, right? But typically,
as proportion to their body. Like say a twins, one boy, one girl, fraternal twins.
Yeah.
And they're very very close in all things except sex. The female will have more fat as percentage of her body weight. Well, that's obvious.
Yeah.
Hips and boobs and all that, and that's where the estrogen stays. So that's the fat reserves there where estrogen holds out. Male's different.
And of course,
is their thing.
And of course, the eternal question for the woman, which is, do I look fat in this? Well, the real scientific answer is yes. But the logical male answer has to be, no, you look lovely in everything you wear.
And get it out quick. Don't delay, because as soon as you pause, they suspect something.
Yeah.
Oh, you look wonderful,
Anyway, yeah.
Never tell them the truth. Get a girlfriend of theirs to tell them the truth. They know how to do it diplomatically.
No, they don't have. They don't have. They don't have benefits that can be taken away.
I was in a change room in a store. I forget what store it was, but the change room beside me, there was a couple of young women in there. Well, they weren't young; they were around about 30, in their 30s, and by that time I was only in my 40s, I think. So I'm changing. I'm trying on different clothes, pants or something, and they're in there doing the same thing, but they're there together, two friends, and I'm listening to them. Does this make me look fat? Does this, and going on and on and on like that? And I was just very, very amused. And they said something that was quite rude about how the pants were tight and did something to a certain part of their anatomy. And they were laughing and giggling and everything like that. And we both left the change rooms at the same time. As soon as they saw that I was there and that I'd been listening to them, both of them went beet red instantly.
All right. I think you've got to get going, haven't you?
Yes, I got to get going. Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Let's go for peace. I don't think there is going to be a peace anytime soon. Netanyahu wants to kill everybody, but unfortunately, the Palestinian people are taking the beating, and I hope that gets over with quick. And the Ukraine thing is just a complete sham. We have just shoved Russia and North Korea into the sphere of China. Great, just great. All right. Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace as unlikely.